Welcome back, or welcome to Autoimmune Health Solutions. My name is Dr. Michael Smith, and in this short series of videos, I'm going to share with you the 6 pillars of the Ancestral Autoimmune Protocol. After I describe each of the 6 pillars, at the end of those videos, I'm going to share with you how they fit into the 4 phases of, again, the Ancestral Autoimmune Protocol. These videos hopefully won't be too long, but I want to make sure that you have access to the things that have made the biggest differences in my health as a patient. I have Crohn's and colitis, and have made the biggest impacts in the health of my patients. I've been a clinician for 25 years, and my focus has been autoimmune disease for most of that time. So I hope this series of videos helps you wrap your mind around what's important, what's essential, why they'll make the biggest difference in your health, and perhaps why having these 6 different pillars is important. Because honestly, each of us is going to focus on the ones that we're the most comfortable with, and we're probably going to have a bit of a narrow view on the ones that we're not. So I'm not suggesting you have to commit completely to all of them. I'm definitely encouraging you, though, to make sure you've dipped your toe in most of them. And some of them are much more medical, and some are a little bit personal and a little bit spiritual. So let's see what we can learn from the 6 pillars of the Ancestral Autoimmune Protocol. As a patient, I'll begin by saying that trying to get help in the modern world with an autoimmune condition can be very frustrating. Unless you have a lot of experience with integrative medicine modalities, embodied practices, fitness, mindset, and things like that, you're basically given the options of surgery, drugs, and wait and see if it gets a lot worse. And that's not something I want as a patient, and that's not something that I would ever recommend as a clinician. So in my journey over about 30 years with Crohn's and colitis as a patient, I've come to recognize that diet would be my first pillar, metabolic adaptability in the sense of how we age and what's available in the modern world for diet and what the averages are becomes that second pillar. Third is going to be about fitness. Now, we don't all have to be Olympic athletes and have a 6-pack, but we do have to regulate our physiology by maintaining an active and healthy body. If you don't do that, you're going to age more rapidly, be more inflamed, and have a lot more hormonal disruption. So that'd be number 3, which would be fitness. Pillar number 4 is always going to be about mindset and mindfulness. And I'll go back into that in a lot more detail. But I would want to ask you at the beginning of this conversation to just ask yourself, how often have you actually relied on being more mindful, moving into meditative states, using breath work, or just actually sitting with yourself to work things out? Because for a lot of us, when your body's kind of against you and you're against your diagnosis, things can get pretty intense in the mind. So that mindfulness and mindset can be crucial, especially at the beginning when someone like me is going to ask you to change your entire lifestyle. Pillar number 5 is all about supplements. And supplementation is really important at the beginning to regulate your immune system. And we'll get into some ideas about that in a minute. And number 6 is actually about support in the sense of family and community, and maybe even going to a group to talk about how you're doing with your health. And then there's spirituality or spiritual practice or even religious practice if you happen to be a participant in religion. So again, as a patient, those are the things over about 30 years I've come to rely on as my foundational pillars of health. And as a clinician for the decades I've been involved in helping autoimmune patients, they've been the most consistent resources for other people as well. So I'm going to share all of those in more detail with you. And at the end, I'm going to walk through how each of those 6 pillars fits into the 4 phases of the Ancestral Autoimmune Protocol. So let's get started. The first pillar again is about diet, and I like to refer to this as good food and nutrition. Now there's a lot of different views on nutritional science, and this video is not meant to be that long, so I'm just going to talk about the idea of good food. In my experience, good food is about something that you want, that's familiar, and that hopefully you can share with other people. And when you're on a very extreme or exclusive diet, that makes it one of the biggest challenges, is how to fit it into the modern life and the modern family. The challenge most people face with an autoimmune condition moving into any of the diets that are recommended by most clinicians is, where can you find food in a restaurant? And most people, that can take a week or 2 or 3, depending on where you live. You sometimes actually have to sit and talk with the manager maybe of your favorite restaurant and really let them know what's going on and why perhaps you can't have their salad dressing, or why you might want to ask them, please cook with a different oil. And you'd be surprised how many restaurants would actually say, well, sure, we could do that for you. It might cost you another $1 or 2, but that might be worth it. The other challenge people face with diet and nutrition on any kind of autoimmune protocol is you become eventually one of those people. And that means people who, within your family or your social group or your workplace, is the person on that kind of diet. And that can create a lot of social disorientation. It can create shame. And it can keep us from feeling more confident about what we're doing, because everyone around us may be undermining your efforts. So one of the first things I recommend for my patients is bring in your partner. Go to a talk together. I actually bring my patients' relatives into my clinic and explain what's going on to them. You need to make sure that the people in your life who are looking at you like, what are you doing? You need them to understand why, and that may actually help you reinforce that information in your own mind and make it easier for you to explain to other people why you're doing what you're doing, instead of just telling them, I'm on this autoimmune diet. Because a lot of people will get frustrated with you because you're not as much fun on Friday nights. And this kind of a protocol isn't about fun. It's about solving complex chronic disease. And that's a big challenge. The last thing I'll say about diet for today is think about making a meal as a way of having a date with someone. You're going to have someone over, I'll make you supper. And obviously you can't do that all of the time, but it creates a different relationship with your diet, because now your focus is, I want to create something we can both appreciate, we can both enjoy, we can both laugh and share and talk about, because it's really good food. It tastes good, you want to eat it again, and it's worth the effort. So I think of that as like date night. So in my own life, if I'm not eating with anyone else and I know I have to be really mindful of my diet, I just imagine that I'm making meals for me and someone else who I really want to enjoy that meal with. And all of a sudden it becomes just a part of the joyful process of integrating a challenging diet into a very healthy and happy life. If you're not sure where to start, focus on the Autoimmune Protocol, or the AIP, and always make sure you're being as focused on a nutrient-dense diet as possible. There's going to be a lot of videos on this channel, the Autoimmune Health Solutions channel, so over time there's going to be a lot more resources for you to make sure you're getting the best, the yummiest, the most fun to eat, nutrient-dense food that at least I can come up with. For your first pillar, good food and nutrition, I'm just going to walk through the 4 phases. So phase 1 is all about reducing inflammation. So when you're looking at your diet, the first thing you're going to want to do is get into some fasting and focusing on an anti-inflammatory diet, and to make sure that your diet has the least amount of antigens in it, or things that are going to make your immune system upset. When you look at phase 2, the focus is more on repair and bringing back into your body a lot of the things that make your connective tissues work. This is a tough one for people because we think of our bodies as perfectly normal and then perfectly not normal. So we don't actually think about repairing damage from the past. A lot of us, it took years, maybe 5-10 years, to go from an early sign of a problem to a fully diagnosed autoimmune condition. So when you're looking at the repair of your body, keep in mind that you're repairing the damage, especially the damage to collagen and connective tissue, your neurotransmitter bank accounts, your hormonal bank accounts, and perhaps even how much you've drained on your bone marrow to keep your immune system fighting something that's inside of you and chronic. So these are loose associations, and I'm not describing something that we're going to be able to measure with science anytime soon. This is more from a Chinese medicine point of view of, well, if you're depleted, maybe you should start by repairing that depletion by putting more tissue money in your tissue bank accounts. So that's why the phase 2 diet is so focused on connective tissue, things like the necks of animals, the spine or the tail of animals. Things that have a lot more cartilage, or focusing on joints and bones that have a lot of connective tissue or a lot of bone marrow. This is also a time when eating nose to tail is really important. I'm not going to explain why livers are good for you in this video. I'm just going to ask you to trust that your livers, your kidneys, and things like your heart are full of really important nutrients. So when you're looking to change your diet, maybe spending a month or two focusing on what all human beings around the world have focused on for the last 200,000 years, is eating the organs of the animals that have the most nutrient density possible. Phase 3 is taking our nutrient density from our sense of good food and nutrition and starting to add in things that we know are good for us, but are also maybe a little bit challenging, like a few nuts or seeds or maybe some pseudo grains. The focus is still on a nutrient-dense diet, but we're also wanting to make sure we're getting more opportunities and also reducing the restrictions that we have on our diet. It's amazing what happens when people can basically, I can have something that looks like a pancake, I can have something that maybe has the mouthfeel of granola or something. I'm so excited. So that phase 3 shift in your nutrition is really important, because it encourages you to be careful and mindful with what you're adding, but also making sure that you're getting the most possible nutrient density from your diet, while very carefully testing your immune system to see if it's still going to react to those foods. In phase 4, with respect to good food and nutrition, the focus is actually on eating as close to a healthy human, what I call homesteader diet possible, which includes a little bit of maybe some white rice or some oats, things like that, but also perhaps some full-fat organic grass-fed dairy, preferably goat to start with, so that again you're getting a sense of what your body's going to react to. If you're going to start eating things like oats and maybe a little bit of rice or something like that, you're also going to want to make sure that as you include more starch in your diet, you're getting a lot more homemade, preferably preserved or fermented foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, kefir, kombucha, and all of those things that we know can help rebuild your gut microbiome. So that's good food and nutrition. Make sure that you always start there, because that's the pillar that we all have to change no matter what's going on. Thanks for watching the video, and please hit that subscribe button, ring that little bell, share this with anyone you might think would need it, and more than anything, please leave a comment, or probably more important than that, leave a question for me as to what kind of videos you would like me to make to support you and your health. I'm actually having fun doing this now. I think I've got it kind of worked out. So let me know what you need a video on, and I'll do my best to put that in the pipe and get it back to you as soon as I can. Thanks for watching again, and have a great day.